Okay. We'll now call the regular meeting of the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Board to order. Conducting the monthly meeting today via video teleconference. We'll go through a roll call of board members to see if we have a quorum. When I call your name, please say here. Jeffrey Coburn. Here. Andy Shrove White.
Here.
Marissa Neal.
Here.
Ms. Neal, can you please show your video? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. There you go.
Thank you. Charlie Bell. Charlie Bell? Nope. Okay. So John Jamil, no. And Charlie Bertolon.
Here.
So we do have a quorum. Good. Ms. Hamilton, introductions this morning.
I am very privileged this morning to be able to introduce Timothy Rocky, who is our newest engineer on Steve's industrial compliance section. And Tim joins us from the Kentucky Division of Air Quality, where he was in the stack testing program, did that work across the state. He is a UK engineering grad, and I know that makes Matt and Karen very happy. But we welcome him to the district.
Great. Thanks, Tim, for joining. You live here locally or were you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shorter commute?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Helps air quality when you don't drive. Public recognitions, Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you. This week is National Engineer Week. This began in 1951 to highlight the important role engineers play in our society. This week was chosen to coincide with President's Day, and that's because it formally recognized the birthday of George Washington, and he is generally recognized as the nation's first engineer. As a surveyor and military commander during the French and Indian Wars, he utilized his map-making skills and surveying skills to the advantage of his troops. And then he used his own engineering skills on his own farm, where he developed what is essentially a drill plow. So the plow was equipped with a rotating barrel that was used to disperse seeds. And for that reason, he is recognized for his staunch support of engineering and scientific advancement during his administration. We're very privileged to have 17 engineers who support the work of the district, primarily in our industrial permitting and compliance programs. Two of those engineers, Matt King and Steve Burbett, serve the board as air pollution control officers for their technical support. Air pollution control officers must be licensed professional engineers like Mr. King and Mr. Burbett, Dr. Ichi Lin, and Karen Thorne. I'd like to congratulate David Becker for recently passing the licensure exam to become a PE, and Cameron Barnett for passing the engineering training exam like many of his colleagues. Mr. Becker will be applying for his PE designation later this summer. He completes the necessary engineering experience. So on behalf of the district, thanks to our engineers. Happy Engineering Week.
And on behalf of the board, I want to second that. Thank you. Congratulations. Thanks for the service and the hard work. Professional achievement. The meeting minutes from our regular meeting on January 15, 2025 were distributed electronically for review. Are there any comments, edits, changes from board members?
None here.
Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Now the public comment section. Ms. Thorne, is anybody ready to make a comment? Okay. Has anybody submitted a written comment? No? Are any members of the public in the Edison room that wish to make a comment? If so, please step to the podium and state your name and affiliation.
Steve Myers, Ford Motor Company, so like Ford Louisville Assembly Plant and KTP. And Nolan, I think everybody met before, but Mark Ornish is going to be supporting the Kentucky Truck Plant. And the environmental engineering Kentucky Truck Plant is Teresa Douglas, who's not here with us today, but I want to welcome Mark.
Welcome and thanks for attending the meeting. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this video teleconference? If so, please raise your hand. Video teleconference will be called upon. This is a feature you can find under participants list or pressing star 3 if joining by phone.
I'll see you over.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. Unfinished business, there is none. And we'll move to new business, which is the proposed amendments to the board bylaws. The board bylaws subcommittee has recommended the board adopt proposed amendments to the board bylaws. So when will you provide a brief explanation?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Good morning, board members. The bylaw subcommittee comprised of Dr. Jeffrey Coburn as chair, Candace White, and Marissa Neal met with myself on Friday, January 24th, to review the current board bylaws to address the following topics. One, election process where there exists vacancies in the offices of the chair and vice chair at the same time. Two, adherence to metro policies such as timely submittal for required financial disclosures. Three, board attendance. The need for members to attend in order to carry out the business of the board and the district and development of formal attendance policy. And lastly, just to do some miscellaneous revisions to update any outdated references or terminologies in the bylaws. The bylaws the proposed amendments to those bylaws have been submitted to the full board a couple of weeks ago for your all's review. There has been one change since that submittal based upon Director Hamilton's suggestion. And that change is to Article 5 meetings, subparagraph C. The current statement says at the very end, excessive absences may result in disciplinary actions, including potential removal from the board. Just to be clear on this, the board's authority with respect to that statement has been changed to excessive absences may result in the board recommending initiating the process to remove such member from the board. So with that change, the bylaw subcommittee respectfully requests the board to approve the proposed amendment as revised.
Can you add a little commentary in regards to why that change was made? Because it's, I understand in essence, it's the mayor's office that wants to, therefore,
That's correct.
has authority to remove them. It's not the board. So
That's correct. So
I just want to make that clear.
that's right. So that's the whole initiating the discipline, the termination.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt proposed amendments to the board bylaw?
Can I comment first?
Well, we're going to go through this process and we're going to have discussion.
Okay.
Because I understand we're going to, right? Okay.
Well, I move to approve.
Okay.
Revisions.
Is there a second?
Second that. Marisa.
Okay. Charlie, now it's time for discussion.
Okay. I understand this addition about attendance, but the phrase excessive absences mean nothing. I really would like to see some definition around excessive absences, like if you miss 50% of the meetings in a year, or some quantitative element to that, because it's undefined. The purpose is good and it should be there, but let's define for our purposes, if everybody agrees, what percentage is excessive absences?
Can I make a comment? For me, one thing, these are citizen volunteer boards, so I find some difficulty in being too punitive one. The second is there's a multitude of reasons that a quantitative definition of that is subject to argument or debate. If somebody's got health issues or family crisis or whatever the case may be, then we get into debating what is, there's 50% work. So I'm personally comfortable enough with the discretion left to the board to determine what is success. Does that make any sense?
Yes, I'll agree with that, and I'll add, putting a hard line there really is going to create a trigger, or that's not really necessary. The process, as Steve mentioned, there are a lot of circumstances where maybe 50% would be acceptable due to illness. So this can be discussed and worked out. Also allows for more flexibility. So I'll just add.
Other board members?
Yeah, I would agree. That's what we discussed during our subcommittee meeting, was how much flexibility and exactly what authority the board has to move forward. And we were talking about, is it not showing up and nobody knows why, or is there a reason? And there just is a bit more flexibility.
Any other comments from anybody on that matter, or any other regarding the changes? Okay. If not, we'll move forward with a vote. Be by roll call. Please unmute your mic and say yes if you wish to adopt the proposed amendments, bylaws, and no if you do not. Jeffrey Comer,
Yes.
Candace Shrove White.
Yes.
She said. Marissa Neal.
Yes.
Again, Charlie Bell's not with us, is that correct? Charlie Bertolon,
I'm still a no.
okay, thank you. And I will vote yes. Proposed amendments to the board bylaws is adopted. I want to thank the board subcommittee for the work that they did on this. We appreciate that. On committee reports, again, the subcommittee on the bylaws did meet during the month. And there will be some upcoming meetings likely scheduled before our next board meeting, maybe immediately before our next board meeting, related to some changes by reference to the regulations that Vanessa. Thank you. Let's see. That takes us to the director's report. Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to report that next month I'll have the pleasure of introducing you to a new assistant director. It's been a much protracted hiring experience. Shouldn't have taken this long, and I am grateful for the support of everyone here at the agency.
That's wrong with that. Video.
One moment. Okay, we're back. Everybody's live. There we go. So next month, I'll actually have a new assistant director to introduce to you, and I look forward to that. It has been and continues to be a very busy time here at the district. I'll first start with an update on reformulated gas. In 1995, Governor Brereton Jones opted our area into the reformulated gas program as a means to reduce precursors of ozone. These are nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds, and help the area meet the national ambient air quality standard in effect at that time. Since then, reformulated gas has been used to help our area meet that national ambient air quality standard for ozone. But due to improvements in conventional gas and automobiles, the benefit that RFG has on air quality today is relatively small. And while the cost of RFG on the retail price compared to other market forces is difficult to tease out, it does cost more to produce and transport. In our area, nitrogen oxides primarily drive our ozone formation, or what the area is called NOx limited. Given the reductions from LG&E's Mill Creek Unit 1, which shut down at the end of December, and Mill Creek Unit 2, which will shut down in 2027 with the completion of the new combined cycle gas turbine, we will see reductions of more than 4,000 tons of nitrogen oxides
Per year.
per year. Given the small benefit we see from RFG, and the reductions that we'll see from Mill Creek and other projects, including American Synthetic Rubber Company's conversion of their coal-fired water to natural gas. The district recently asked Governor Beshear to take the first step in removing the use of RNG in our area by petitioning EPA to opt out. Governor opts us in, the governor opts us out. That's step one. The district is now working on completing the second step. It's called a non-interference demonstration, which will show that removing RNG now will not cause the area to not meet or maintain the national ambient air quality standards for ozone. We're waiting on some modeling that we're doing in conjunction with the Kentucky Division for Air Quality and KIPTA, consultation with EPA. Once we complete that demonstration, which should be shortly, we'll put it out for public comment, and then it will go to EPA for their permits. We'll keep the board apprised as that work moves forward.
Can you, just to put it in context, give us the amount of tons that RFG has saved relative to pollution given like 20?
I'm not sure we've ever looked at it. In the past, when RFG was first implemented, we were talking about hundreds of tons of reductions in volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxides, as well as particulate matter. Now we're talking about tens of tons. So it is, well, tens of tons is the benefit we receive from RFG today in comparison to the benefit that we'll see with LG&E's Mill Creek work. We are talking about tens of tons of benefit from RFG and thousands of tons of NOx reduction at that. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? I'd like to thank both Byron and Gary, who worked on the original plan to request the removal of RFG. When we did our request for redesignation, and Lauren Robbins, who has picked it up now to substitute emission reductions for our attainment. As you know, EPA strengthened the national ambient air quality standard for particulate matter last February from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9. The first deadline under the Clean Air Act was last Friday, and that was for the states to make recommendations about the attainment status of their areas. For our part of the Commonwealth, the rest of the Commonwealth, our recommendation was to find the area in attainment on the basis of our 2024 design value, like thank Billy DeWitt and his team for early certifying our air monitoring data. Our metropolitan statistical area, however, includes Clark and Floyd County in Indiana, and the monitor in Jeffersonville is currently above that 9 microgram per cubic meter standard, largely, we believe, due to impacts from Canadian wildfires. To address this, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management has submitted their recommendation and an exceptional event demonstration related to data impacted by the Canadian wildfires to US EPA. EPA will evaluate that exceptional event demonstration, and if they concur, it's likely that the area will be designated as attainment in February of 2026, which would be the next regulatory step. Now, we shared with Chair Sullivan a view of Indiana's exceptional event demonstration. It covers 30 days. It's almost 600 pages in length. We spoke with our EPA Region 4 counterparts who are working on particulate matter exceptional events demonstrations yesterday. The deadline for submitting these to them was last Friday, and they are slammed with of demonstrations covering thousands of days collectively over Region 4. We are continuing to complete our work on our ozone exceptional event demonstration. Again, once that is complete, which should be soon, it will go out for public comment and submit that to US EPA for their permits. Again, I'd like to thank our air monitoring team, and I'd also like to thank Will Bachman, Lauren Robbins, and Matt Mudd for working through a very technically dense initial draft and catching some typos, and also some errors were meaningful. So thank you all very much. Any questions about that?
Can you put in perspective what we discussed in regards to that every monitor for every day has a tremendous data set that has to be analyzed?
Every monitor for every day does have a tremendous data set that has to be analyzed. For us, for a particular matter, that was close to 10 days that were impacted, we believe, by the Canadian wildfires. PM is a little bit more straightforward than ozone, but in order to do that exceptional event demonstration, just from a looking at the monitor, you would be looking at the federal reference method, that every 3-day gravimetric method data, a continuous monitor, if one is co-located there. There may be speciated monitoring that goes on in the area every couple of days. You'll be able to look at to say there's a smoke presence here in this area, black carbon perhaps, speciated VOCs and PM. So that's just the data itself. But on an everyday basis, one of the things that's used to help show that there's smoke in the area is something called US EPA's Fire and Smoke Map. It is a tremendous tool. However, US EPA doesn't archive those maps. And so we've implemented a practice where every day we go in and grab a screenshot of the map. So in the event we need to do an exceptional event demonstration, we have that already archived here locally. And then there's just a tremendous amount of scientific analysis that goes on, modeling for wind direction, weather, back trajectory modeling to show the source indication. Ozone gets a lot more complex due to the chemistry of ozone. And again, we are as I understand it, we're the only area in EPA Region 4 who is preparing an ozone exceptional event demonstration, the first in Region 4 to do so. So it's a little bit of a
Certainly not the last.
I don't believe so. EPA has developed a new tool. It's called the Ember model, which they rolled out at the end of December and demonstrated in January, which they have built with available data for the 2023 Canadian wildfire events. But it's a platform that could be updated for use by either an agency, hopefully our multi-jurisdictional organizations. For us, that's called Metro Force SR, will take on the obligation to keep that model up to date because it won't be the last. Last week, U.S. Representative Morgan McGarvey sent a letter to the district to share his support for including implementing the Strategic Toxic Air Reduction Program and our work in implementing the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, including the newly strengthened particulate matter standard. We appreciate his support and his recognition that the district is authorized by the Kentucky General Assembly under KRS Chapter 77 to go beyond the federal program to address uniquely local concerns like air toxics. In late January, Simmons College began a symposium series focused on air pollution that the district is helping to facilitate. To date, all right, I think we're all a little
So we ran out of gas. It's the announcement.
we have a plug strip here that didn't get turned on, and so the computer that's actually running the meeting, battery died. Sorry. All right, picking back up where we were. In late January, Simmons College began a symposium series focused on air pollution that the district is helping to facilitate. Board member Shub White attended the first one. So glad to see you there. To date, we've shared information about our work, the work of the Office of Sustainability, and the distinction between criteria pollutants and air toxics and climate pollution. Tomorrow night, Arnita Gatson, a community member and the executive director of the West Jefferson County Community Task Force, will be presenting on environmental justice, Rubbertown, and the district will provide support with a brief presentation on the STAR program. And as we move forward through April, There'll be fewer places where the district will be presenting and more where the community will be sharing their experiences.
What time is the, tomorrow and the location is?
It's all virtual. It's all
Oh, it is?
free. It starts at 6 o'clock. There's about an hour-long presentation and then an opportunity for comments. They've lasted, we usually ended around 7:30, 7:45. So they've been a lot of fun. We've had 20 to 15 people. Hopefully, I think a lot of folks have heard our kind of clearing the air workshop series, nuts and bolts. We'll see a lot of folks joining us through the rest of the series. All right. House Bill 137. As you know, APCB was organized by the Kentucky General Assembly in 1952 under Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 77. So we're always watching when the legislature is in session. The General Assembly is considering some legislative changes in House Bill 137, which would apply to APCB, the Kentucky Division of Air Quality, and third parties, including the public. And it proposes to define the type of air quality data, emissions test, or monitoring method that may be used, and the quality of that data that could be used to enforce the Clean Air Act, including our regulations and those of the State Division for Air Quality, or used in a citizen suit. The bill was significantly revised last week at the Natural Resource and Energy Committee. And so we're currently evaluating how those revisions may impact our work. We'll keep the board advised as the bill moves forward and the end of this legislative session nears. The last topic I have is one of national scale. We're likely to learn this week of EPA's recommendation and the continued applicability of the endangerment finding that certain greenhouse gases endanger public health and welfare. Specifically, in the Unleashing American Energy Executive Order, EPA was charged with, within 30 days, coming forward with a joint recommendation to the Director of the Office of Management and Budgeting on the legality and continuing applicability of the administrator's findings on the endangerment and cause of contributing findings for greenhouse gases under Section 202A of the Clean Air Act. That's a bit of a mouthful, but as background, the Clean Air Act tasks EPA with regulating pollutants from numerous sources. In 2007, the Supreme Court held in Massachusetts v. EPA that the term pollutant includes 6 specific well-defined greenhouse gases. That decision required EPA to make a determination about whether pollutants emitted from cars, trucks, and other sources endanger public health and welfare. And in 2009, EPA issued its endangerment finding that greenhouse gases were indeed pollutants covered under the Clean Air Act. Since then, EPA has been working on regulations for cars and trucks, as well as power plants and facilities that emit methane, especially from oil and gas operations. The deadline is today. We'll keep the board informed as EPA makes its recommendation. And depending on what that recommendation is, what impact it may have on our operations. The question about the legality of that endangerment finding was asked during the initial Trump administration, and they found at that point that it was appropriate to retain. See what happens this time. Any questions on my report?
Anybody online?
Hearing none, I'm going to turn this over to Matt Mudd. APCB has published its 2024 annual report. It's time for us to share our good work. Okay.
Thank you for the report.
It was fine. Okay, like Rachel mentioned, I'll start off covering a little bit in our annual report. Quick clarification, we are publishing our annual report after this meeting. You all are getting a first look. So I wanted to make sure you know how exciting this is.
So we can make comments and send it to you.
You're welcome to. We'll take feedback any way you want, but I know you're joking, but I just want you to know this is a first look, not post publication. No. So the annual report's generally in two parts. The first is kind of an air quality update. Provide some information on our national ambient air quality standards status, the air quality index, kind of sharing AQI numbers throughout the year, emissions data, odor reports, kind of all of the tools that we use to describe Louisville's air quality any given year. And then there's a section by section update where each part of APCD shares some of the highlights from the year. Something if you've been here a couple of years now, you are familiar with. So that's a basic overview. You can see our cover stars there, Shane and Starlet from our air monitoring section. Happy to get some good work being done on the front of our annual report this year. So, Andy, if you could move on to the next slide. I think I'm going to have two ahead. Yep, one more. So the first thing that we're going to cover, and this is easy because I get to follow Rachel very aptly explaining some national ambient air quality standards updates, but just a broad overview for those of you who need an update. The national ambient air quality standards are standards set by EPA through the Clean Air Act for 6 commonly occurring harmful pollutants. That would be carbon monoxide, lead, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, PM, particulate matter, and ozone. So our air monitoring sites in the area produce data that is then used to produce a design value that is compared to a standard to designate whether we are attaining the standard or not. As you can see at that table, we are attaining the standard for nearly all pollutants, excepting ozone. But there's 2 that I'm going to look a little deeper at today, and that'll be particulate matter and ozone. So next slide, please. First, ozone. As you all have heard, ozone is a little bit more complicated as a pollutant because it really isn't really directly emitted into the air. It's created when 2 other pollutants, VOCs and NOx, combine with sunlight to form a chemical reaction that then produces ozone. So it's highly dependent on the weather. Over time, as you can see kind of from the trend line, our ozone levels have gone down. That's because in large part, our local emissions of the precursors to ozone, NOx and VOCs, have gone down significantly. But you see, largely due to weather conditions, you see it when you see more ozone when it's hot, dry, sunny, and calm. Largely due to weather conditions, there's a lot of variance in that number depending on whether we had more hot, sunny days or whether there were more rainy, cool days. Those factor a lot into our ozone design value. Despite that progress, you've seen an inch up the last couple of years in 2023, largely due to impacts from wildfire smoke. And then last year, we also had a year where there were some more hot, dry days during the summer. This is all, like I said, while our precursors emissions for ozone, NOx, and VOCs continue to go down. So you can see the pretty significant impact that weather has on our local air quality there. Rachel gave you an update on the exceptional event demonstration that we are preparing for ozone. So after that is complete, you'll see an impact on our design value here, but that's it as of the time being. So next slide, please. So this is our fine particle pollution trend. We are attaining this standard, but as we've covered in depth, the standard is being strengthened from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9. You can see that reflected on the trend chart up there. That green box is the 12 standard. As you can see, we attained that shortly after it was finalized back in, it looks like, I know it's small, 2015. And then the new standard is coming into effect now, but due to the timeline of how long we have to attain a new standard once it's proposed, our attainment status currently is still based off of that previous 12 micrograms per cubic meter standard. But you can see our design value is currently slightly above that 9.0 standard. That's based on the Jefferson model, Jeffersonville monitor that Rachel described earlier. So you have the down low on that process. We expect these emissions and these local levels to continue to go down, and we expect the area to meet that standard. Any questions on NACS? Okay, so we'll move on to the AQI. So the air quality index, very basically, is a scale used to communicate air quality conditions. It's for the same pollutants that we have for the NACS. So it uses the NACS pollutants. This is local air monitoring data. Each day is given a daily AQI value. That's good, moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, and then there's 2 other categories, very unhealthy and hazardous. Here in Louisville, most of our days, as you can see, are good and moderate. We have some, sorry.
What's the time frame reflected on?
So-
I can't read that.
Yeah, sorry, I'll say, it. That up there is our 2024, and I said 2023, I forgot to edit that. That's 2024 daily AQI values. So in 2024, we had 169 good days, 183 moderate days, 12 unhealthy for sensitive group days, and 1 unhealthy day. So that's a downtick in unhealthy for sensitive group days compared to 2023. I think we saw about 10 less of those days, partially because of those wildfires not having an impact this year, as much of an impact this year. We saw 1 unhealthy day, which was similar to last year. Something to note as we move on to and so I do want to point out, we talked about ozone and how hot, sunny summer days are the main reason that we see elevated ozone pollution. You look at that graph, sorry, all of our unhealthy or sensitive groups or worst days are in that summertime when the weather is hot, when the weather is stagnant, and when the conditions to produce ozone are high. So all of our unhealthy for sensitive groups or worst days last year were due to ozone pollution and none of the other pollutants. So as we move on to the next slide, I know these are all small and hard to see, so I'll try to explain them too. So this is a screenshot from our air quality index dashboard. You can find this on our website. It's a great resource to kind of learn more about how the air quality in the area has changed over time. What you'll see if you're able to look closely there is that this year we saw more good days than we've seen any year since 2000, which is around when we started measuring all of our current pollutants. So that's a positive number, is that we had more good days than ever before. And then we saw a downtick in those unhealthy for sensitive group days compared to 2023, though we saw a few more than we did in the years preceding that, say 2020, 2021, and 2022. But when you compare this year to the early 2000s, I think we had over 100 unhealthy for sensitive groups days in 2000 and 2001, and around 100 as late as 2008 or 2007. So the progress that we've seen in the last 20 years still remains significant, even if we saw a slight uptick compared to the years before 2023 and those unhealthy for sensitive groups days. Something to point out, this will look slightly different. If you go in and look at last year's presentation, these numbers will look slightly different in that the AQI has been updated. When those national ambient air quality standards were updated, the threshold between good and moderate changed, specifically for PM 2.5. So we saw, when you look back at past data now, that gets applied to past data, there are way more moderate days on the AQI and a decent amount less good days. So they just made it tougher for the day to be good and more likely for the day to be moderate. So that's just something worth pointing out. The good number that we saw this year, I think, was 183, wouldn't have previously been a record, but once you take that new number and apply it to every single other year, now it is. I hope that made sense.
Hey, Matt,
Was that,
Yes,
it's Bertalan.
it's,
I got a question for you on one of the earlier slides on the ozone one that showed the chart for the last 3 years ticking upward. My question is, do the precursors for the ozone also trend higher, or is that spike driven purely by temperature?
so I don't know if we have exact data from those years, from any eye perspective. Rich can answer that, but.
Couple of things to keep in mind. When we looked at 2023 in particular, we are, as part of the exceptional event demonstration, trying to account for the Canadian wildfire contributed precursors, both from a nitrogen oxide standpoint and a volatile organic compound standpoint, both of which are found in wildfire smoke. So taking 2023 off the table and hoping that our exceptional event demonstration will help explain that. When we look at 2024, we currently are under a degree board order with LG&E for the operation of Mill Creek's units 1 and 2. Those are their less well-controlled units. They're limited to no more than 15 tons per summer day. And so we tend to see steady state operation there, Charlie. One of the things in 2024, when Matt mentioned kind of that weather impact, believe it or not, humidity plays a factor in reducing ozone formation. It generally tends to scrub ozone. And the latter part of the summer of 2024 was exceptionally dry. So for those of you who don't like it when it's hot and muggy, I may be one of the few people in town who think that's a wonderful thing. But it was an odd, a meteorologically odd summer. So we think that's the primary driver. We've looked at excess emission reports as part of our analysis of the exceptional events for ozone, particularly looking at potential releases of volatile organic compounds. And we just don't see anything of any consequence. I think one of the highest releases was 100 and some pounds. So going to dig a little deeper into 2024. It's a good question. And we'll be using some of that information as we move forward with planning to bring the area into attainment and maintain. So stay tuned on that. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry for the disruption. To go back a couple of slides.
No, it's a good question. And I think anecdotally, we did see a lot of those hot, dry, sunny summer days last summer. And so I think in the report that we published, in the full annual report, we note that weather as kind of the main driver of the increase in those USG days, if you will, those orange days. But we can provide more data at a later date, like Rachel said. So if that helps.
Again, thank you.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
You said that the threshold from going from good to moderate changed at some point. That made those green
Yes.
good day. For what pollutant was that, and how did that change?
So that was for PM 2.5 when they updated the standard last year. They
Oh, just since last year.
just since last
Oh,
year.
so that has nothing to do with this chart.
It has a lot to do with this chart because they updated the standard from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9. And that was actually previously the threshold. 12 micrograms per cubic meter for a daily average was moderate, or above that was moderate, below that was good. And now that's 9. When they update that standard, they take it and they apply it to all past data for the AQI. Just, it's not a here forward thing. They apply it to all past data. So it does affect this. Not the way you're looking at it now, but if you notice the change in, say, the 2005 data from last year, this year, it would be because of that.
12 is the line from moderate to healthy.
Good to moderate, because that's an annual average standard. But when you're looking at it daily, it's kind of complicated. But
Oh, that's the day, okay.
so since it's the annual standard, they kind of use it as for a daily value, they use it as the good to moderate threshold.
Okay.
I think one of the takeaways that you can have from this slide in particular is that the number of good days have increased as the standards have been strengthened and gotten tighter. So it's not just that we are cleaning the air because we're reducing pollution. We're cleaning the air, reducing pollution, and meeting tighter standards. And that's reflected in this graph here. That if you looked back to 2000 using the standard of today, this is that picture.
I'll say the way that they take the AQI, the NACs, and use it to create the AQI could be kind of complicated. That's why the AQI exists, is because it's supposed to be the one-stop shop to help you understand how air quality affects our health on a daily basis. When it's a daily standard for any NACs pollutant, should I stop it for the moment? Or-
We got an issue again.
Oops.
So you can hear us, bear with us. We have another issue we're addressing.
We're back. So if it's a daily national ambient air quality standard. Generally, that's the threshold between moderate and unhealthy for sensitive groups, but the updated PM 2.5 standards an annual one, and they were using that as the daily PM 2.5 standard is what's used as the threshold between moderate and unhealthy for sensitive groups, and the annual one, what they use is the threshold between, on a daily basis, between good and moderate. Does that make sense? Or am I losing you? It's okay. Okay.
The annual for the dailies, 30 to 35.
That's right. And the 35 is what they use. Like if you're over 35 on a day, it's an unhealthy for sensitive groups day.
Yeah.
If you're under 35 on a day, it's moderate until you get to now 9, previously 12. And then under 9 is a good day. And it used to be under 12 was a good day.
Okay. Got it. So 9 and 12.
It used to be under 12 was a good day. Now under 9.
Yeah, those numbers are pertinent not only for the annual, but for the daily.
For the daily AQI values, yes.
Yeah.
So basically now.
Category. Yeah, okay.
Now, any past days that were between 9 micrograms per cubic meter and 12 are now considered moderate days. They used to be considered good days. That's it. We're in the weeds now, but
Hey,
all
Matt,
that is to say, there's way more moderate days now than we now know, consider many more days moderate than we used to.
Matt, can I ask a quick question again?
Sure.
On this report, does it mostly go out to technical people or more non-technical?
It goes out to the general public, so anyone could read it. It goes out to a variety of stakeholders. It's shared widely through people like APCA and NACA. Those are people who are in, our local organization, other local organizations in other areas. It also goes out to people in Louisville. They're usually more interested in the top line data. How many good days did we have? How many moderate days did we have? Things like that. So hopefully people can dive as deep or as broad as they want into this report.
The reason I asked that question, it's in line with some of the other comments that have been brought up, is the standard is getting stricter, but yet we seem to be doing better. And if there's any way to make a footnote on a graph like this to say that, I think it would benefit everybody.
That's good to note. We have on the first page, we have a top line that,
Okay.
like a highlights list that hopefully explains some of those things. Like emissions are going down. Here's how many percent they're going down. Local air quality is improved. This is more good days than we've ever had. Things like that. So hopefully that helps. But providing feedback on the report would be really appreciated. So, and we try to go into detail where we can. So, and provide that top line overview. So we will, if there's any further questions on AQI values, we'll move on real quick. To local emissions data. I know I probably could put this in bigger writing, but basically estimated local emissions of common pollutants like fine particles, sulfur dioxide, and the pollutants that form ozone, NOx, and VOCs have all decreased in the last few decades, some significantly. We got that from EPA's National Emissions Inventory. That is a trend that just keeps continuing. And now, since implementation of our STAR program in 2005, the latest data from EPA's Toxics Release Inventory show that air toxics emissions from industrial sources have now dropped over 85% in Louisville Metro. That's 5% more since last year, or since the most recent set of data before the newest one. Also, industrial emissions of our highest priority compounds in the STAR program, they're called Category 1 toxic air contaminants, have decreased by nearly 97% since this passage of the STAR program in 2005. So these trends continue, and they are very good trends. So next slide, please. Briefly on odors. So we received nearly 3,000 reports of odors in 2024, that's supposed to say. That's a 25% reduction compared to 2023. We received about 4,200 that year. Compared to the 2023 and 2022 odor seasons, there's less clear odor season in late summer and early fall. That trend chart on the right there, you can see we kind of peaked in June with odor reports this year. Previously, we had a very, very significant peak in the late summer, which was around September and October. That was in concert with a very dry season where we saw sewer odor reports go up significantly. Even so, sewer odor reports were our primary odor report in 2024. And areas that were served by the combined sewer system, which is mostly West Louisville and the downtown area, were our greatest areas of odor. The zip code that we're in, I believe now 40203 is the one that saw the biggest increase last year. That moved up the list a little bit. That's the old Louisville and downtown area. Those were primarily sewer odor complaints as well. Of course, other areas of odors like the Swift area, Butcher Truck, need to become odor report sources. And that's the basic overview. We, of course, updated our agreed board order with MSD last year. As their odor work continues, we saw a decrease this year. So hopefully that's a trend that continues.
And that's a correlation that can be made.
We saw less sewer odor reports than last year. There's a chance that it was weather. We saw more rain, but we like to think that there's progress being made.
The Metropolitan Sewer District will have a annual report to the board on March 31st or so, and we'll pass that along to you. That should include an assessment of their complaints, much like ours, but also include data about weather and flow to the Morris Form and wastewater treatment. So
So will it include like real life monitoring data? Maybe,
or
I mean, they're gonna have anecdotal evidence, right? But is there,
they do monitor flow, so that is data that they will be able to share. And
not point source odor?
this will be MSD's work.
And that should be it for odors. We just yesterday updated our odor report dashboard to include data through 2024. So anyone who has these slides, which we posted after the meeting, can click on that link and find it. Shout out to Will Boffman, our data analysis person. He does a great job on those resources. So if there are no more questions, I think that's it for me. I'll pass it on to Billy for air monitoring updates.
Thank you, Matt. Billy Witt, Air Monitoring Program Manager. And I'm privileged to work with a great staff in air monitoring, and I'm just going to briefly give you some of the highlights of the great work that they did in 2024. You could go ahead, please, Andy. The staff performed and evaluated approximately 5,500 tests and checks on our ambient instrumentation while collecting nearly 60 million data points to validate 45 parameters to submit to the National Air Quality System. During that time, they produced about 1,300 reports and documents to bolster our legal defensibility. Again, this is a very small staff, so the amount of work there. We evaluated, tracked, and resolved approximately 40 complex corrective actions and/or repairs within the network, and improved and refined standard operating procedures for both data handling and data production. Next slide, please. That first one should also have a bullet, but we implemented hydrogen sulfide monitoring at our Algonquin Parkway site. And incidentally, we're also working with EPA, Office of Research and Development, on testing another methodology for measuring hydrogen sulfide, and it's very encouraging, correlating very well with what you're doing. So, cool to test out new technologies. We also added a second air monitoring chemist to our staff to bolster our VOC data review. But in the near term, it's for implementing our year-long air toxic study that's coming up, and we've done a lot of planning and preparation for that. We also began adding equipment for our air sensor lending library. These are lower cost sensors that aren't necessarily regulatory methods, but that can be used to give an indication of potential hotspots. The staff served as national leads performing research and analysis on continuous PM 2.5 optical particle count. Then this data to increase the understanding of instrument operation and characterization of PM 2.5 data. And although EPA thoroughly tests these technologies, a lot of times it's left up to the staff in the field to really work out the bugs and figure out the science. And the staff's done a great job with that. And additionally, we provided continued expertise to the Auto GC or Gas Chromatograph National Work Group, and continue to do so. So that's big highlights for everyone. That's the one for me.
Good morning, I'm Matt King. I manage the district's industrial permitting program. I appreciated the kind words about engineers, primarily our staff are engineers. I do want to note, I think we missed one. Dr. Coburn is an engineer, mechanical engineer, and more than a few of us, I think, have taken his class at U of L. So the permitting team, I'm Charlie Bertolon, as an engineer. And so we start our work with an application from a facility, and we determine what rules apply, what monitoring, record keeping, and reporting is applicable. The team goes through hundreds of air pollution regulations and gives a tool for both the facility to use to show compliance, as well as the inspection team to verify that. This last year, we did 27 construction permits, 3 Title V operating permit renewals. Those are our largest or major sources. 12 FEDUC renewals, everybody's favorite air pollution acronym, FEDUC. That's the middle-sized category. They have a large potential, but take limits to be a non-major source. We did revisions to 5 of those types of permits, and we issued 1 initial FEDUC. 12 minor source permits, 24 registrations, which is a lot like a permit, but is a simpler process, a little cheaper for the fees, and a little more appropriate for your smaller businesses that emit air pollution. And then we do exempt some sources. We can do that officially if they apply and if we agree with that exemption. The permit there on the right, again, pretty small, but it's a recently issued and earlier, about a year ago now in 2024, it was a permit for LG&E authorizing the construction of a new combined cycle high efficiency gas turbine. And the permit requires the facility to shut down units 1 and 2 older, way less efficient coal units at that facility. So I think that's a good example of first really complex work. I think one of Dr. Coburn's students, Ichu Lin, wrote that permit, and I think it shows that you can continue to provide affordable, efficient electricity and reduce emissions. And really that's the work here. It's incrementally improving air quality while still maintaining quality of life and economic opportunity. Next slide, please.
Can I ask you a question, Matt?
Sure.
It seems like lately there's been a lot of notices, audit notices on rules of permits. Am I misreading that, or is there a timing that's maybe clustered together? Am I wrong about that?
There's probably a few reasons. They're on a 5-year cycle. We don't always get to them immediately, but sometimes when we issue a lot, you set yourself up for a good bit more in about 5 years out. So I think we see pockets of that. There's also just been a lot of good hard work getting done in the section. We'll kind of hit that here in this next slide. We've seen a lot of changes here, and we lost a long-term APCD employee, Eva Addison, with 30 years of high quality, highly productive work here at APCD. But that change was a good opportunity. It allowed for several promotions. Shannon Hosey, we have 2 permitting sections. She became the new supervisor of one of those, and Karen Thorne, who's been at this for 10 or 12 years as a supervisor, many more as a air pollution professional. And they've really worked to increase effectiveness, look at those priority projects, work with their teams to get these out. Those renewals can sometimes get overshadowed by construction permits. A traditional value is to look at those business opportunities that must fully comply with all air pollution rules, but can allow a facility to employ more people, make more money, pay more taxes, put more goods out in the marketplace. And we've really realized we needed to focus on those renewals. So I think you're seeing a couple of things there. Besides some of the other changes, we've been able to promote and hire our first new engineer in 2.5 years, which I think a really good thing to say there. When I was new, we were having quite a bit of turnover. We'd bring in 4 or 5 new engineers a year and lose about that same number. So we really put a good team together. Shannon and Karen have worked together well for many years, and I think are really looking at what are those important priority permits and making sure those are getting noticed and issued. I believe that's my last slide, and I'll pass it over to the compliance team. You can go to the next one, Andy.
So my section, the industrial compliance section, has continued to exceed its EPA requirements. We did everything what EPA required, and we're able to spend time inspecting and reviewing reports for other companies. The asbestos group has issued, by and large, the same amount of permits we do every year. Construction's kind of steady. That's kind of, the work in my section is pretty steady. We kind of do the same amount every year. As Matt discussed, the odor complaints were a little down this year. The big thing in my section, I don't know if y'all remember last year, I stood up here and said we had lost all of our compliance officers. We had just replaced them with 4 brand new compliance officers. And the year in 2023, the compliance work for community compliance had to be handled by industrial compliance and permitting engineers. Well, fortunately, we still have 3 of those 4 compliance officers, but they were all new this year, so lots of training went on. The 4th compliance officer took a promotion into Billy's group, so our loss was his gain. So we're looking for a compliance officer again. We also had 2 permit engineers leave mid-year, and we hired Tim to replace one of them. We had some promotions in that group. We're still a person down. So my highlight is my section has still had turnover, and we've still managed to hit all of our numbers that we do because of the hard work and ability of my section to pivot and be flexible about what companies they're responding to. With 2 people that had been here a long time leaving, we had people getting assigned to new companies they've never been to. One of them was our engineer 3, Steve Holly. He'd been handling some of the major chemical plants in town. Having David and Travis, our newer engineers, jump into the larger Title V facilities and be ready to be inspected. It's a lot of good work for my section. That's kind of my highlights. We've been very flexible. We've still been able to.
Are you finding that you get viable candidates for openings?
Fantastic.
So it's got to be friends and relatives?
Yeah. So we're working through some postings with HR right now. We're going to try to make some more moves to get my section back up to staff. But yes, we did get good candidates. Not to toot this more, but engineering degree, quality candidate, had experience in the field, is able to hit the ground running.
Great.
It's my section. No reason.
I think, and maybe next, maybe if you'll program plan. I think that's me. Program planning team has, bless their heart. Okay, so the program planning team has had a lot of change as well. In 2024, that section was joined by Lauren Robbins and Will Bachman. And as with hires across our enterprise, we really bring on excellent candidates who are amazingly adept at being ready to work and to take on the challenges of the weird and wonky work that we do. Program planning works across the enterprise. There are various things that we'll talk about today, but they also do our support work for our state implementation planning, as well as special projects. Lawn Care for Cleaner Air is a familiar project to many. We support that program to offer rebates for the exchange of gas producing lawn equipment with electric. It's supported with penalty funds. We saw an uptick actually this year, very late in the season, because we saw a continued warm fall. And as Christmas approached, many people took that opportunity to update their lawn equipment. Our CARE, Kentuckiana Air Education, is a really integral part of the work that we do here. It covers not just Jefferson County, but also the metropolitan statistical area, and is supported by both the state of Indiana and also Kentucky. The campaign made over 42 million impressions. If you see our Idle Free campaign, it's one that may be familiar to many. If you haven't looked at it often, I encourage you to go to our website, take a look at CARE. And also, if you're out at Waterfront Wednesdays, stop by and talk to staff who are manning that particular opportunity. Our Air Quality Action Partner Program is still relatively new. You may remember we started that with stationary sources that are regulated by APCD, but after a few years expanded that to any business within Jefferson County. We have 27 Air Quality Action Partners, and we look forward to sharing their good work with you, I think in May, usually in May. And that work is a voluntary way to improve air quality. You know, we're kind of a lot of the things we do are the stick part of regulation, and having opportunities to provide carrots is great. Lastly, we celebrated Air Quality Awareness Week in 2024 with the support of Mayor Greenberg and a mayoral proclamation and press conference and a green drinks event with the Louisville Sustainability Council, which included a pretty raucous, what was that? Trivia, air quality trivia. So, all right, next slide. If Andy could promote Arlette.
I had Carlette promoted. It looks as if she has dropped off for some reason. I don't know if her computer dropped, but she's actually not on the conference at the moment.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and keep it moving along. So our administrative staff are what keeps the light on, keeps us moving forward. We are extraordinarily grateful to have a team that is professional and supportive as we do. This year, we did onboard 6 new APCD employees, including Arlette Jones, who is the manager over that section. That team covers very unique work across the enterprise. We handle 108 open records requests. Every commercial transaction within Jefferson County has to perform certain due diligence. That includes looking to see what the past environmental use of a piece of property may have been. And we handle a lot of those inquiries as part of a site assessment on an annual basis. Over 400 lawn care for clean air rebates. Monica Little helps to facilitate those. 2,300 website documents standardized, which also means having those available to the public. We are a bit unique in how much the public can access directly on our website. No open records requests needed. And we couldn't do that without support from Sherry Staley and Matt Mudd. And lastly, with Monica's assistance and that of Carlette, we made sure that our suppliers have been paid on time and appropriately for the goods and services that they've used to support us. Next slide. I think that's it. Andy, I did have one request for you, if you're able to share that.
Just a moment here. Taking me a while to
Sorry
get
to keep you
there.
time, but it is worth waiting for.
Here we go. Share.
All right. It is beyond to introduce you to Star. Andy, would you like to explain who Star is and her name?
Certainly. My wife and I volunteer for a charity that provides service dogs for veterans and first responders. And we had a service dog a couple of years ago named Hunter, who was here at APCD, who fell basically into our lap because they had a fallout with the original foster. Well, they've had a lot of applicants for dogs and they had no fosters. So we volunteered to take on another service dog. So Star is now 12 weeks old. This is her first experience with snow. She really enjoyed the going out and playing in it. So once she gets a little more stable in her potty training and so forth, she will be coming in to work with me 3 days a week, learning how to stay quiet under a desk, greet people, and do all those wonderful things that a service dog can do for folks that need them. So this really helped Hunter last year, the way that she could walk with me, go around, greet people, learn to be quiet and learn to lay down is a really hard skill for a lot of dogs to learn. So Star has a lot of promise. She's been in 3 times so far, and she'll go around. She'll greet everybody, pretty much in the whole building. The entire building loves her. Records, LMPD, community services. Everybody wants to see Star, and that pretty much tuckers her out. She goes in and sleeps for a couple of hours, and then goes around and does some more greeting. So she has a really good temperament. So we're really hopeful for her. We picked Star because we have the STAR program here at APCD. And I said, since she's getting her on the job training here, her name should fit. So that's how we came up with STAR.
Under Kentucky law, an animal that is being trained as a support animal is treated as if they were a support animal. So having Andy bring her into our office is required on our part. We also appreciate having her here and being part of an opportunity to improve the life of a veteran or firefighter. She will probably be in attendance at some board meetings in the future. So we'll be sure if she is, you'll get a chance to meet her. But I want to thank Andy for helping folks, and we'll probably have a highlight for her in the 2025 report. So that does conclude our report this morning. And there was a comment. Shannon.
It was Korean. Star is a very good dog. I met her in the 8th.
All right, any questions from the board on the director's report? We certainly appreciate all of the hard work and the great progress that's been made. Okay, if not, we'll move on. The standard air quality enforcement center reports, as well as excess emissions complaint investigation report, were distributed. There's nothing unusual about any of them that I could see as I looked at them. Guess we'll start getting ozone reports by the next board meeting, as it starts March 1st. Any comments from board members with respect to those reports? Okay. All right, with that, I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what the date of the next meeting is. And again, just a reminder, if you want to sign in and haven't, please do so. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 19th at 2025 at 10 a.m. Careful on the roads.